I found my wife's secret Google account. And I'm sick to my stomach. It all began on a quiet Tuesday evening. I had come home late from a business trip, tired but eager to finally get some rest. As I made my way through the hallway to the kitchen, I noticed my wife, Emily, sitting at the dining table, her face illuminated by the glow of her laptop. She was typing furiously, her eyes glued to the screen, but she didn't seem to notice my presence. "Hey, Em," I called out, trying to sound casual. She jumped slightly, closing the laptop with an almost too quick motion. Her smile was strained, the kind of smile I had seen too many times in the past few months. "Hey, love, you're home late," she replied, her voice carrying a forced lightness that didn't sit well with me. I shrugged, dismissing the odd feeling in my chest. "Just finished up some work stuff. What are you up to?" "Oh, just, nothing." "Much," she said, standing up and quickly walking to the fridge, her back turned to me. But as she did, I noticed something strange. A small slip of paper on the table, half hidden under the corner of her laptop. It wasn't anything special, just a random note, except for one thing. The Google account details scribbled across the top. My stomach churned as I picked it up, pretending not to notice the way her body stiffened when she heard the rustling of paper. "Emily," I said, my voice quieter than I intended. "What's this?" She turned to face me, her eyes wide, her mouth opening to speak but faltering. "What's what?" she asked, trying to mask her unease. I held up the paper. Her face paled instantly. She didn't even try to take it from my hands. She just stood there, her expression one of guilt and something darker, a secret she hadn't been able to hide anymore. I didn't need to say anything more. I felt my blood run cold, my heart pounding in my chest as everything clicked into place. This wasn't just a forgotten password. This was something planned, something hidden. "I found your account," I said, my voice steady but thick with emotion. "And now I'm sick to my stomach." Her eyes darted away, avoiding my gaze, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I saw the cracks in the facade she'd built. The walls she'd so carefully constructed began to crumble as her secrets spilled into the room. "You've been hiding something from me," I said, more to myself than to her. "Why?" She let out a long, defeated sigh, the kind of sigh that spoke of years of frustration and resentment, buried so deep that they'd only just begun to surface. I didn't mean for it to go this far, but I had no choice. I was stunned. The words came out so softly, so quietly, like they had been weighed down with a heavy burden, one she couldn't carry any longer. I took a step closer to her, my voice rising with each word. "Had no choice? Had no choice in what? What the hell are you hiding, Emily?" She bit her lip, trying to stop herself from breaking down. "I didn't want you to know," she whispered. "I didn't want to hurt you." Her confession hung in the air like an unspoken truth, the weight of it pressing on both of us. I could feel the room closing in, the silence stretching out between us like a chasm I couldn't cross. "Tell me, Emily," I said, my voice trembling now. "What have you been doing? What was so important that you needed to keep it a secret?" She hesitated, then, almost reluctantly, she sat down, her hands wringing together. It's not what you think. It wasn't about someone else, if that's what you're wondering. It was about me and who I've become. I felt like I was losing myself, and the Google account was my way of keeping track of things I didn't feel like I could share with you. Not at first. I frowned, confused, and more than a little suspicious. "What things? Why couldn't you talk to me about it?" She took a deep breath and looked up at me with tears brimming in her eyes. "Because for the longest time I've been hiding a part of me from you, from everyone. The account wasn't for anyone else but me. I've been talking to a therapist, secretly." I blinked, trying to make sense of what she was saying. "A therapist? Why wouldn't you tell me about it? We've always been open with each other." "I didn't know how to," she whispered. "I've been struggling with so much, and I thought you'd think I was weak, that it meant I wasn't strong enough for you, for our marriage." It all came rushing in, the endless work hours, the moments where she seemed distant, the nights she stayed up late, always avoiding the real conversations. It wasn't an affair. It wasn't some betrayal of trust in the physical sense. But it was something deeper, something that had chipped away at the foundation of our marriage. As the truth settled in, the sickness in my stomach didn't go away. Instead, it turned into something else, an uncomfortable sense of betrayal, not from an affair, but from the absence of something I hadn't known we were missing. Honesty. "So you were keepin'." The silence between us stretched unbearably. Emily's confession hung in the air like smoke, suffocating and inescapable. I should have felt relief that it wasn't an affair, that there wasn't another man hiding in the shadows. But I didn't. Instead, I felt something else, something darker. A deep, gnawing sense of betrayal. Not because she was seeing a therapist, not because she was struggling, but because she had chosen to suffer alone, keeping me at arm's length while pretending everything was fine. I turned away from her, running a hand through my hair. "I don't understand," I muttered, pacing the length of the room. "Why didn't you trust me with this? Why go through so much effort to hide it?" Emily sniffled, rubbing her hands over her face. "I didn't want you to see me as broken. I let out a humorless chuckle. "Broken? Emily, we've been together for 10 years. We've gone through hell and back together. And you think I would have walked away from you for needing help?" She flinched at my words. "I don't know," she admitted. Maybe, maybe not. But I didn't want to risk it. I exhaled sharply, my fingers tightening around the note with her secret account details. It still didn't make sense. A hidden email account, private searches, deleted browser history. It felt too extreme for something as simple as therapy. Something wasn't adding up. My eyes flicked back to the laptop she had slammed shut. The instinct was immediate, visceral. I needed to see what was inside. She must have sensed it because she quickly stepped in front of the table. "Don't," she whispered, her voice shaking. That was all the confirmation I needed. I pushed past her and flipped open the laptop. The screen came to life, and I was met with the sight of an open Gmail inbox, her secret account. The unread messages glared at me like accusations. There were dozens of emails, dozens. Some were from a therapist, as she claimed. But others made my stomach twist into something worse than before. The subject lines alone were damning. Confirmation of transfer. Finalizing the arrangement. Your request has been approved. Timeline confirmed. Urgent. Additional. Verification needed for withdrawal. My heart pounded. I clicked the first one. Emily gasped. "Ethan, please, don't..." But it was too late. My eyes darted over the email, the words slowly sinking in like knives to my chest. It wasn't therapy. It wasn't some self-help journey. It was a financial transaction, a large one, a six-figure sum moved from one account to another. A transfer I had never known about. My breath hitched. "What the hell is this?" Emily backed away, her face pale. "I can explain," she said quickly. "No," I snapped, my pulse roaring in my ears. "No more lies, Emily. Tell me the damn truth." Tears welled in her eyes, but she didn't speak. Not right away. And that hesitation, that split second of delay, was enough for a terrifying realization to creep in. This wasn't just about her mental health. It was about our money. "Where did it go?" I demanded. "Who did you send this to?" Her lips parted, but no sound came out. My mind raced. I hadn't noticed anything missing from our accounts. Our finances were supposed to be secure. We had savings, investments, everything in order. And yet, here she was, moving money behind my back. Then, another terrible thought struck me. Was there someone else involved after all? I clicked into another email, scanning for more clues. My blood ran cold as I saw a name appear more than once. Nathaniel. Ross, I clenched my fists. Who the hell is Nathaniel Ross? Emily let out a choked sob. Ethan, please just... Who is he? I roared, slamming the laptop shut. She trembled but finally spoke. He's my brother. Everything around me blurred for a moment. I felt like I had just been punched in the gut. You're what? My brother, she repeated, her voice breaking. The one I never told you about. My brain scrambled for understanding. That doesn't make sense. You're an only child. She shook her head violently. No, that's what I told you. But it's not the truth. I stumbled back, trying to process what she was saying. You've had a brother this whole time, and you never thought to mention him? I had to protect you from it, she whispered. From him. The words sent an involuntary shiver down my spine. There was something about the way she said it, like she wasn't just keeping a secret, like she had been running from something. I swallowed hard. Emily? What did you do? She closed her eyes as if bracing for impact. I sent him the money to make him go away. I felt my knees nearly give out. This wasn't just a secret. This was blackmail. Emily, my wife of 10 years, had been hiding a dangerous family connection from me. One that she had been paying off in secret. And now, it was all unraveling. My hands trembled as I realized the worst part of it all. If she had been sending him this much money, then he wasn't gone. Not yet, and if he wasn't gone, then he still wanted more. The words hung in the air like a noose tightening around my throat. He wants me to help him get rid of someone else. I forced myself to swallow, my mind racing. Who? Emily opened her mouth, but no sound came out. She looked away, rubbing her arms as if she could shrink into herself and disappear. I grabbed her by the shoulders gently but firmly. Emily, who does he want dead? Her eyes met mine, wide and terrified. You! A sharp silence sliced between us. For a moment, the world around me didn't feel real. The walls of our house seemed to close in. My heartbeat roared in my ears. Nathaniel wanted me dead. Emily took a step back, shaking her head frantically. Ethan, I swear, I would never... I barely heard her. My brain was already working through the implications. Nathaniel had been blackmailing Emily for years, bleeding her dry. Now, the money wasn't enough. He wanted me gone. Why? What did I do? Emily's voice broke through my thoughts. He thinks you're in the way. My jaw clenched. In the way of what? She hesitated, then whispered, of us running away together. A sharp, bitter laugh escaped me. That's what this is. He thinks you're going to drop everything and run off with him? Emily shuddered, her hands clenching into fists. I don't know what's in his head anymore, Ethan. I barely recognized him when he showed up again. She took a ragged breath. He's paranoid, erratic. He thinks I'm still his little sister that he needs to protect me. But I don't need his protection. I need him to leave us alone. I pinched the bridge of my nose. And when were you going to tell me this, Emily? Before or after I wound up in a ditch? Tears pooled in her eyes. I was trying to handle it. I let out a bitter chuckle. Yeah? How's that working out? Her shoulders sagged in defeat. I don't know what to do, Ethan. I did. I opened her laptop again, scrolling through her emails. There had to be something here, something I could use against Nathaniel. Then, I found it, an email from a burner account. No name, no subject. Line, just a single chilling sentence. If you don't do it, I will. A new wave of nausea hit me. This wasn't a threat. It was a promise. I turned to Emily. He's coming for me whether you help him or not. She nodded numbly. I took a deep breath, then closed the laptop. Then we're going to beat him to it. Emily's head snapped up. What? We're going to stop him before he gets the chance. I grabbed my phone, already dialing a number. We need help. Emily's face paled. Who are you calling? I met her gaze. A private investigator. She sucked in a sharp breath. You're bringing someone else into this? I held up the laptop. Emily, he's already coming for me. We need an advantage. Her hands trembled. What if he finds out? I clenched my jaw. Then we make sure he never gets that chance. The phone rang. 1 ring, 2. Then a voice answered. This is Vincent Black. I took a deep breath. I need your help, and I don't have much time. Silence. Then, tell me everything. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Vincent Black's voice was calm but firm, the kind of tone that belonged to a man who had seen the worst of humanity and never flinched. Start from the beginning, he said. I told him everything. Emily's secret account, the money transfers, Nathaniel's threats, the chilling email. When I was done, there was a pause. Then Vincent let out a slow exhale. You're in deeper than you think. I gripped the phone tighter. What do you mean? Vincent's voice was measured. I've heard of Nathaniel Shaw before. He's not just some small-time con artist. A cold shiver ran down my spine. Then what is he? A fixer. A ghost. He knows how to make people disappear. I swallowed hard. And now he wants to make me disappear. Yeah, Vincent said. And if we don't act fast, he's going to succeed. Emily was staring at me, wide-eyed. I put the phone on speaker. Vincent continued. You said he thinks Emily is still under his control? Yes. Then we use that. Emily shook her head. No, I don't want to play into his delusions. Vincent's tone was sharp. You don't have a choice. He's already 2 steps ahead of you. The only way to win is to make him think he's winning. Emily hesitated. What do you mean? Vincent's voice dropped lower. We make him believe you're ready to run away with him. Her face paled. No, I can't. Vincent ignored her protest. You email him? Tell him you're in? Set up a meeting? Somewhere public, somewhere we can control? Emily shook her head more frantically. You don't know him. If he thinks I'm hesitating, he'll kill Ethan. Vincent finished for her. Yes, that's why we need to be careful. I exhaled. And what happens at the meeting? Vincent's voice turned cold. We end this. Silence filled the room. Emily was trembling. If we do this, if we trap him, what happens to me? I turned to her, feeling a flicker of something dark and unreadable in my chest. That depends, she swallowed. On what? I met her gaze. On whether or not you were really going to help him. Her lips parted slightly, but she said nothing. That silence told me everything I needed to know. Vincent cleared his throat. We don't have time for doubts. Emily, are you in? She looked at me. I could see the fear in her eyes, but also something else, an understanding that this was the only way out. She exhaled shakily. I'm in. Vincent's tone hardened. Good. Then let's get to work. This was no longer just about betrayal. It was about survival. And Nathaniel Shaw had no idea what was coming for him. Vincent wasted no time laying out the plan. We need to control the location, the timing, and the exits, he said. Emily, when you contact Nathaniel, make it sound urgent. Tell him you're scared, that you think Ethan is catching on, that you want to leave now. Emily swallowed hard, nodding. Vincent continued. We'll pick a meeting place where we have the advantage. A cafe with security cameras, or better yet, a parking garage where I can control who goes in and out. A pit settled in my stomach. You're assuming he'll come alone. Vincent let out a dry chuckle. He won't. Emily flinched. Then what do we do? Vincent's tone was sharp. We isolate him, make him feel safe, and then we take him down before he realizes what's happening. Emily's breath hitched. And if he doesn't fall for it? Vincent exhaled through his nose. Then we have to assume he's coming to kill Ethan, and we'll be ready. A heavy silence settled over the room. Emily turned to me, her eyes pleading. Are you sure about this? I stared at her. Was I sure? My wife, the woman I had loved and trusted, had been hiding things from me for years. Even now, I wasn't sure if she was telling me the full truth. But one thing was certain. Nathaniel wanted me gone, and I wasn't going to let that happen. I turned to Vincent. Let's do it. The setup Emily sent the email. Nathaniel, I can't do this anymore. Ethan is getting suspicious. We need to go. Now. Meet me at the old Crestview parking garage at midnight. Please. The response came 5 minutes later. About time. Be ready. Vincent leaned back, his face unreadable. He took the bait. I clenched my fists. What now? Vincent smirked. Now we hunt the hunter. The meeting midnight. The Crestview parking garage was nearly abandoned. Fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting eerie shadows against the concrete walls. Emily stood by her car, shifting nervously. A small microphone was taped under her collar, transmitting everything back to Vincent and me from a distance. Then, the sound of footsteps. Nathaniel Shaw stepped out of the darkness. He was taller than I expected, lean but strong, his eyes sharp and calculating. He moved with the confidence of a man who had never once considered the possibility of losing. Emily's breath hitched. Nathaniel, he smirked. You actually did it. You finally chose me. I gritted my teeth. Not for the reasons you think. Nathaniel stepped closer, brushing a strand of hair from Emily's face. Where's your bag? She hesitated. It's in the car, but we can't just leave like this. What about Ethan? Nathaniel's smile turned cold. What about him? Emily forced a nervous laugh. You wouldn't really hurt him, right? Nathaniel tilted his head. You still don't get it, do you? I told you. I'll protect you from anything. His voice dropped lower. Even him. Emily swallowed hard. Nathaniel. He grabbed her wrist, his grip tightening, and that was my cue. I stepped out of the shadows. Let go of my wife. Nathaniel didn't even flinch. He turned, a slow smile spreading across his face. Ah, Ethan. His tone was casual, almost amused. Right on time. Vincent's voice crackled in my earpiece. Stay calm. Let him talk. I clenched my fists. You're done, Nathaniel. Whatever you thought you were going to do tonight, it ends here. Nathaniel chuckled. You think you can stop me? Vincent's voice came through again. Keep him distracted. Stall. Nathaniel's gaze flickered back to Emily. Did you really think you could set me up? My stomach turned. He knows. Nathaniel's smirk widened. You're predictable, little sister. I saw this coming the moment you hesitated in your email. Emily's breath hitched. Nathaniel, please. He pulled a gun. I barely had time to react before, bang! A gunshot echoed through the garage. Emily screamed. Nathaniel staggered. His face contorted in shock as a red stain bloomed across his chest. He turned, eyes wide, furious, and for the first time, I saw it. Fear. Another gunshot rang out. Nathaniel collapsed. Vincent stepped out of the shadows, lowering his gun. His expression was unreadable. Emily dropped to her knees, shaking. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. Nathaniel Shaw, the man who had haunted our lives, controlled my wife, tried to kill me, was dead. Vincent exhaled, sliding his gun back into its holster. Told you we'd be ready. The aftermath. The police came. We gave our statements, the evidence, the emails, the threats, the gun in Nathaniel's possession, painted a clear picture. Self-defense. Vincent disappeared as quietly as he had arrived, leaving only a brief nod in farewell. Emily and I drove home in silence. She turned to me, her face pale, her eyes hollow. Ethan? What now? I didn't answer, because the truth was, I didn't know. Nathaniel was gone. The immediate danger was over. But my marriage? That was something else entirely. And as I looked at Emily, the woman who had kept secrets, lied, to me, nearly gotten me killed, I realized something. This wasn't the end of our story. The house felt different when we got home. Empty. Silent. The kind of silence that wasn't peaceful. It was waiting. Emily walked in first, moving like a ghost as if afraid of touching anything. She dropped her coat on the couch and turned to me. Are you going to say something? I shut the door behind me, locking it out of habit. I wasn't sure why. It wasn't like anyone was coming for us anymore. I don't know what to say. Emily flinched like I had hit her. For a long time, she just stood there, her fingers twisting together. Then, finally, she whispered, I never meant for any of this to happen. I let out a sharp laugh. That's funny, because it did. She swallowed. Nathaniel manipulated me. He made me feel like I owed him, like I couldn't escape him no matter what I did. I clenched my jaw. And yet, you still chose to keep secrets, even when you had a way out. Emily's eyes darted away. I was scared. Of him? A pause. Then softer. Of you. My breath caught in my throat. She forced a sad smile. Not because I thought you'd hurt me, Ethan, but because I knew, once you found out the truth, you'd never look at me. The same way again. I ran a hand through my hair, exhaling slowly. She wasn't wrong. I would never look at her the same way again. Not after the lies. Not after the betrayal. Not after realizing that the woman I had spent years loving was capable of hiding so much. From me. Emily stepped closer, her voice almost desperate. But I never stopped loving you. Even when I was stuck in Nathaniel's web, even when I was lying, I loved you. I let her words hang between us, heavy, full of meaning. Then I met her eyes. Do you love me enough to tell me the whole truth now? A long silence stretched between us. And then, Emily hesitated. I felt the air shift. The same way it had when I first found that secret Google account. The same way it had when I started digging into her past, and suddenly, I knew there was still more. My stomach turned. Emily, what else aren't you telling me? She swallowed hard. A loud knock shattered the moment. We both jumped. The clock read 2:17 a.m. I exchanged a glance with Emily before moving toward the door. My fingers hovered over the handle. Who is it? Silence. Then, a single white envelope slid under the door. Cold dread trickled down my spine. Emily covered her mouth with her hands. Oh my God! I reached for the envelope with stiff fingers, tore it open. Inside was a single sheet of paper, 6 words. Nathaniel wasn't the only one watching. A chill ran through me. Nathaniel was dead. The nightmare should have been over. But this was just the beginning. The paper felt heavier than it should have. My eyes traced the 6 words again, my mind racing through possibilities. Nathaniel wasn't the only one watching. The ink was fresh, the handwriting sharp and deliberate. Someone wanted me to know that. Nathaniel, the man who had tormented Emily, the man who had died in front of me, hadn't been working alone. Emily's breath hitched behind me. Ethan. What does it mean? I folded the note slowly, keeping my voice even. It means we're not done yet. I turned the envelope over. No return address, no name. Just the cold, lingering presence of a message meant to rattle us. And it worked. Emily was trembling. I saw it in her fingers, the way they twisted in her sleeves like she was trying to disappear into herself. You think it's someone he knew? Let out a slow breath. I don't know, but we're going to find out. I grabbed my phone and dialed Jordan. He picked up after 2 rings. Tell me you're calling to say it's over, he muttered, voice thick with exhaustion. I held up the letter. Not even close. A pause. Then, what happened? I hesitated before answering. Someone just left us a message. No name, just 6 words. I read it to him. The silence on his end stretched, then a low curse. Ethan, this isn't good. No. Kidding? I did a deeper dive into Nathaniel after the fire, Jordan continued. His finances were strange, a lot of missing gaps, and his connections. He had ties to people who don't just disappear when he dies. My stomach knotted. What kind of people? The kind you don't want looking at you. Emily made a small noise, her arms wrapping around herself. She had picked up on the shift in my voice. The unspoken "this isn't" overhanging between every word. I ran a hand down my face. What are we dealing with? I don't know yet, Jordan admitted. But you need to be careful. If Nathaniel wasn't acting alone, then whoever sent that note, they're watching you now. A slow, creeping realization settled over me. If Nathaniel had someone else backing him, if this was bigger than just him, then maybe his obsession with Emily wasn't just personal. Maybe it was part of something much, much worse. I ended the call and turned to her. You need to tell me everything, right now. Emily blinked at me. No, not the half-truths, not the things you think I can handle. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. Emily, if there's someone else out there, we can't afford to keep secrets anymore. Her lips parted, then closed. A war played out behind her eyes, then, finally, I wasn't just running from Nathaniel, she whispered. I was running from the people he worked for. The room seemed to shrink around me. I stared at her. What? Emily looked down. Nathaniel was dangerous, yes, but he was just a part of something bigger. She swallowed. Ethan, they weren't just watching me. They were watching us. The weight of her words sank into me like a stone in deep water. Nathaniel was dead. But his ghost wasn't the only thing haunting us. Somewhere out there, someone else was pulling the strings. And they weren't done with us yet. A cold numbness settled over me. Emily's words echoed in my head. They weren't just watching me. They were watching us. I gritted my teeth, trying to steady my thoughts. Start from the beginning. Who are they? Emily hesitated, her fingers tightening around her sleeves. I don't know everything. I narrowed my eyes. But you know enough. A long silence stretched between us before she finally spoke. Nathaniel worked for people. Powerful people. Her voice was barely above a whisper. I thought he was just obsessed with me, that he was just sick. But I was wrong. He wasn't, just acting on his own. He was following orders. Orders? My stomach twisted. Orders from who? Emily shook her head. I don't know their names. I never met them face to face. But I know they were the reason he never stopped chasing me. They wanted something from me. Something Nathaniel was willing to do anything to get. I stepped closer. What did they want? Emily's breath hitched. She looked down at the floor, then back at me. I think they wanted you. A sharp chill ran down my spine. What? Her eyes darted to the note still clutched in my hand. Ethan, think about it. Nathaniel was obsessed with me, yes. But why did he go after you so aggressively? Why try to destroy your life? It wasn't just jealousy. He was playing a part in something bigger. I exhaled slowly, trying to keep my head clear. Emily, I need specifics. What did they want from me? Her lips trembled. I don't know, but I think it had something to do with your company. A sharp pain settled behind my eyes. My company? Emily swallowed hard. Ethan, Nathaniel was after more than just me. He was invested in your downfall. His messages, his threats, even his manipulation, it was all leading to something. And when you didn't break, when you didn't give them what they wanted, they sent this. I lifted the note. A confirmation. A warning. The game hadn't ended with Nathaniel's death. I felt the walls closing in, the shadows of something, far more dangerous lurking just out of sight. I ran a hand over my face. We need to find out who they are. Now. Emily nodded slowly. I might know where to start. I glanced at her. Go on. She hesitated, then whispered, Nathaniel kept records. He never trusted anyone, not even the people he worked for. I think he was gathering leverage in case they ever turned on him. My pulse quickened. Where are these records? Emily licked her lips. I don't know exactly, but if he hid anything, it would be somewhere they wouldn't think to look. I nodded, already piecing it together. Then we start with his apartment. Emily stiffened. His apartment? Ethan? It's probably been cleaned out by now. I smirked grimly. Maybe. Or maybe whoever sent this note doesn't know what he was hiding either. If they did, they wouldn't need to warn us. They'd already be coming for us. Emily swallowed, her eyes flickering with uncertainty. I grabbed my coat and turned to her. Are you coming or not? A long silence stretched between us. Then, finally, Emily nodded. We were going back to Nathaniel's apartment, and we were about to uncover something far worse than I ever imagined. Nathaniel's apartment was still wrapped in police tape. The dim glow of a street lamp barely illuminated the cracked pavement as Emily and I stood outside the decaying brick building. A familiar dread settled in my chest. This place had been his sanctuary, his lair, and maybe his graveyard of secrets. Emily shifted beside me, clutching the sleeves of her coat. What if someone's watching the place? They probably are. I scanned the street looking for anything out of place. A parked black sedan down the block. A figure smoking on the corner, half shrouded in shadows. Could be nothing. Could be everything. We go in fast, I murmured. Find what we need. Get out. Emily exhaled shakily but nodded. The front door was locked, of course, but the building was old. Security was more of a suggestion than a rule. A little pressure on the rusted latch, a firm push, and we were inside. The air was thick with dust and decay. The hallway smelled of mildew and regret, every door lined with peeling paint. Nathaniel's apartment was on the 3rd floor. We moved. Quickly, our footsteps barely making a sound on the worn carpeting. I kept my hand near my pocket, where I'd stashed a small knife, just in case. When we reached Nathaniel's door, I expected it to be locked. Instead, it was slightly ajar. Emily froze. Someone's been here. I pushed it open. The place was trashed. Drawers pulled out, furniture overturned, paper shredded across the floor. Whoever came before us had been looking for something, and they didn't find it. Emily stepped in cautiously, her gaze darting around the room. He was hiding something, she whispered, and they couldn't find it. Which means it's still here, I murmured. I moved toward the desk first, sifting through the chaos. Broken lamp, scattered receipts, a smashed hard drive. They wanted to erase him. Emily was already searching the bookshelves, running her fingers along the spines. Her breath hitched. Ethan. I turned just as she pulled out a thick leather-bound book. It looked old, worn, unassuming, except for the fact that it was the only thing still perfectly in place. Emily flipped it open. The pages weren't filled with words. They were filled with codes, numbers, symbols, dates, names, some crossed out, some circled, some underlined. A ledger. My stomach clenched. What the hell is this? Emily's fingers trembled as she traced a name near the bottom of the page. A name that made my blood run cold. My name, underlined. Beside it, 2 words. Active asset. My throat went dry. Emily, what the hell does this mean? Her face had gone pale. It means they weren't just watching you. She swallowed. It means you were part of this all along. The realization slammed into me. This wasn't just about Nathaniel. This wasn't just about Emily. Somewhere, someone had already decided my fate, and I was just now discovering it. Silence pressed between us. Emily stared at the ledger, her fingers tracing my name as if hoping it would vanish beneath her touch. My pulse pounded in my ears, each beat hammering in the same terrifying truth. I wasn't just a target. I was a piece on their board. And I had been all along. I snatched the book from Emily's hands and flipped through the pages, searching for something, anything, that would make sense of this. Names filled the pages, some I recognized, most I didn't. A few were crossed out, a few had dates of death written beside them. Emily's voice was barely above a whisper. Ethan, whoever these people are, they don't just ruin lives. They erase them. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to focus. Panic would get us killed. I scanned the page again, stopping at the columns beside my name. Active asset. Status. Undetermined. What the hell does undetermined mean? I muttered. Emily hesitated. I don't know, but I could guess. Nathaniel had been watching me, manipulating my life, pushing me to my limits, testing me. But I hadn't broken. I hadn't fallen into whatever trap had been set. So now, the people behind this were left with a decision: recruit me or remove me. I clenched my jaw. We need to get out of here. Emily nodded, but before she could move, something slammed outside the apartment. A door. Footsteps. Coming closer. We weren't alone. I shut the ledger and stuffed it inside my jacket, grabbing Emily's wrist. We have to go. Now. We moved. Toward the fire escape, keeping low as the footsteps grew louder. A shadow flickered under the door. Whoever they weren't here to talk. I shoved the window open and guided Emily through first. She hesitated, her breath ragged before sliding out onto the fire escape. I followed, closing the window just as the apartment door burst open. I didn't wait to see who entered. We scrambled down the fire escape, moving as fast as we could without making noise. A loud crash echoed from above. Whoever was inside was tearing the place apart. Then, footsteps. Fast, heavy, coming after us. I grabbed Emily's hand and jumped down the last few feet, landing hard on the pavement. She stumbled but kept moving. We sprinted into the alley. Behind us, metal clattered as someone followed. We had seconds. I yanked Emily toward the nearest street. A cab was slowing at a red light. Without thinking, I threw open the back door and shoved her inside. Go! I barked at the driver. Emily pulled me in beside her and the cab lurched forward. As we sped away, I risked one last look through the rear window. A tall figure stood at the alley's edge watching us go. No pursuit, no panic, just calm certainty, like they already knew how this would end. Emily grabbed my arm, her voice shaking. Ethan, they know we have the ledger. I exhaled sharply. Yeah. Her fingers tightened around mine. What do we do now? I looked down at the book hidden beneath my jacket. They wanted me. They wanted control. And now, we had the one thing they didn't want us to have. I met Emily's gaze. We stopped running, she swallowed. And then, I turned. Back to the darkened streets outside, my jaw tightening. We find out who the hell they are. The cab sped through the city streets, but my mind was racing faster. The ledger was heavier than any book should be. Not in weight, but in consequence. It wasn't just a record of transactions. It was a list of lives, a network of control, a roadmap of manipulation, and I was on it. Emily sat beside me, her arms wrapped around herself, staring at the city lights flashing past. I knew she was thinking the same thing I was. We had something dangerous. And now, whoever was behind this would do anything to get it back. The cab driver glanced at us through the rearview mirror. Where to? I hesitated. Nowhere felt safe. Emily answered before I could. Drive for a while. I'll let you know when we have a destination. The driver shrugged and kept going. She turned to me, voice low. We need to go somewhere they won't expect. I exhaled, rubbing my temples. No matter where we go, they'll find us. You saw that guy back there? He didn't even chase us. He knew we wouldn't get far. Emily was quiet for a long moment. Then we need leverage. I turned to her. What are you suggesting? She met my gaze, determination hardening her features. We don't just run. We fight back. We find out who's behind this, expose them before they have a chance to get to us. It was risky. But she was right. If we stayed on the defensive, we were already dead. I pulled the ledger from my jacket, flipping through the pages again. So many names. But my eyes kept landing on one in particular. Nathaniel Blake, the man who had started all of this. Emily leaned in, following my gaze. What are you thinking? I clenched my jaw. Nathaniel had secrets. But what if he wasn't? Working alone? She swallowed. You think there's someone else? I think there has to be. I tapped the pages. This ledger, these codes, this is bigger than one man. If we can find out who Nathaniel was answering to... Emily's breath hitched. We might be able to get ahead of them. I nodded. And I know exactly where to start. Her brows furrowed. Where? I looked up, heart pounding. Nathaniel's real employer. Emily's lips parted, realization dawning. You don't mean... I nodded grimly. The people funding him, the ones pulling the strings. She swallowed hard. And what if they find us before we find them? I closed the ledger and met her eyes. Then we make sure we're ready. The footsteps were deliberate, unhurried. Whoever was outside wasn't in a rush, because they didn't need to be. Emily and I locked eyes. We had seconds. I killed the phone's screen, stuffing it into my jacket. Emily moved first, ducking, behind the desk. I followed, crouching low as the footsteps stopped just outside the door. A shadow slipped under the crack. They were listening. Emily reached for her pocket, fingers closing around the small canister of pepper spray she always carried. It wouldn't do much against a gun, but it was something. The door handle twisted. I pulled my switchblade from my boot. My heartbeat pounded in my ears, adrenaline threatening to take over. We needed to act before they did. A pause. Then a voice. Calm, amused, male. You should have left it alone, Ethan. My name. Whoever was on the other side knew exactly who I was. Emily stiffened. I squeezed her wrist in reassurance. We had the element of surprise. The door creaked open. A man stepped inside, dressed in black, his posture relaxed, but his eyes sharp, predatory. I recognized him instantly. Elliot Vance. I'd seen his name in the ledger. A fixer, a cleaner, a ghost who made problems disappear. And right now, we were the problem. He smiled. You're making this difficult. Emily's breathing was shallow, but she didn't move. I shifted slightly, ready to strike. You were expecting us. Elliot tilted his head. We knew you'd come sniffing around eventually. He stepped further inside, glancing at the open safe. Nathaniel was always a liability. He didn't know when to stop. His gaze slid back to me. Neither do you, Emily tensed. Who do you work for? Elliot chuckled. You don't want that answer. I gritted my teeth. Try me. His smile didn't fade, but his eyes darkened. The people who own you. A chill ran through me. Elliot reached into his coat. I moved before he could. I lunged, slamming my shoulder into him. His hand jerked, something metallic flashing in his grip. Emily struck next, swinging the pepper spray up. Direct hit! Elliot snarled, staggering back, clutching his eyes. We ran. Out the door, down the hallway, not stopping. Behind us, Elliot roared, in fury. You can't run from this! We didn't look back. We hit the emergency exit, bursting into the alley. A car screeched to a stop nearby. I grabbed Emily's hand. Go! We sprinted toward it. The driver's window rolled down, revealing a familiar face. Detective Harris. He gestured sharply. Get in! No hesitation. We dove inside. The car peeled out just as Elliot burst from the building, gun raised. Too late. We were gone. Emily gasped for breath beside me. I clenched my fists. Harris glanced at me through the mirror. You've really pissed off the wrong people, Ethan. I met his gaze. Then let's piss them off even more. The car sped through the empty streets, headlights slicing through the darkness. Emily was still catching her breath beside me, hands clenched in her lap. Detective Harris kept one hand on the wheel, his expression unreadable. He hadn't asked where we were going. He already knew. You didn't call me, he finally said. Which means you weren't expecting me. I exhaled sharply. How did you find us? He tapped his phone on the dashboard. You tripped an alert at Nathaniel's office. His security was supposed to be down, but someone who didn't want you snooping, set up a silent motion trigger. Emily tensed. So Elliot knew we were coming? Harris nodded grimly. You led them right to you? I clenched my jaw. No, they were leading us. This wasn't just surveillance. It was a game. Harris slowed the car, taking a sharp turn into an industrial area, warehouses looming like silent sentinels. He parked in front of a nondescript building. No signs, no markings, just a steel door with a single security camera above it. Emily shifted uneasily. What is this? Harris turned in his seat. A safe house. I hesitated. I don't like surprises, Harris. He sighed, rubbing his temple. Neither do I, but you don't have many options. Emily swallowed. And if we say no? He glanced at the rearview mirror, scanning the road. Then you better start running because I guarantee Elliot Vance is already tracking you. I exchanged a look with Emily. We were out of moves. I pushed, opened the car door. Let's go. The safe house, the room was dimly lit, sparsely furnished. A single table, a few chairs, an old coffee machine in the corner. But the walls were covered in photographs, newspapers, maps, strings connecting faces to locations, and in the center, Nathaniel's face. Emily inhaled sharply. You were investigating? Him, Harris nodded. For years. I stepped closer, scanning the names. Elliot Vance, Nathaniel Cross, and I stopped. A chill crawled up my spine. Claire Dalton. Emily whispered, Ethan, is that... I reached for the pinned photo of my wife. Harris exhaled. You weren't supposed to find that. My pulse pounded in my ears. Claire was part of this? Emily grabbed my arm. She's connected to them? Harris looked at me carefully. Not just connected. She was working with them. The room tilted. I staggered back. Everything. The secrecy, the hidden Google account, the messages. It wasn't just infidelity. It was bigger. I clenched my fists. I had been chasing the wrong enemy, because Claire wasn't a victim. She was part of the game, and I had just walked straight into it.